left. We would talk about it. We would then maybe invite some other people up to discuss. We don't know what's going to happen. And then at some time, we would play the remainder of the tape. So I'm now going to defer to you.
Well, the question is still outstanding. Why do you complain at all about whatever happens when there is nothing that fundamentally dictates what happens?
And the answer is, as I said earlier, is because when I complain, in my opinion, the belief or lack thereof of God is totally irrelevant. And you're right, I personalized it to my family and murder. You're right.
So you're agreeing that complaining about events is itself a meaningless event. Are you agreeing with that?
I am stating that if some psycho wacko nut comes and murders a member of my family, whether or not they believe in God is totally irrelevant. That's what I admit.
Okay. Is there a fundamental reason why anything happens?
I think I answered that a couple of times too. I said that everybody has the choice and options to either do what
No.
they want or to.
Before there were humans, was there a fundamental reason why anything happened?
Oh, before there were humans? I don't know. We that did not come up today. Whether
Yeah.
that did not come up today, so my answer is I don't know.
Okay. Um, so if there was or was not a fundamental reason why anything happens before there were humans and then after there were humans, the answer would be both the same, wouldn't it?
I don't believe in a predestined world. I believe that people choose their own destiny. And of course, you're free to argue that, Steve, you're not answering my
I'm,
question. But
I'm talking
yeah.
beyond that. You keep on focusing it as to about how people think and respond to their environment. I'm
Well, of
not
course I
discussing
do.
that.
That proves my point. Yes, you're
Well,
right.
then you believe that agency is real. So is there
Can you
something
define
fundamentally?
agency? Can you define
Agency is the capacity for a discrete entity to make real choices, usually depicted by a mind or a person.
I believe we make our own choices.
Okay, now, in terms of everything that exists, is there something that fundamentally that institutes and secures the actuality of agency?
No, I know that for me, and again, I'm personalizing it. I have made choices that I have regretted. I have made choices in the moment because I
That's
was
not
not.
what I'm talking about.
Got it. Go ahead.
Why is there agency at all?
Uh, I don't know. Tell me.
Well, that's because the ground of all being is an agent himself, God, and he's created a world entity to make where real
He
choices. Has provided some of the creaturely things that he's made to be like himself, agents.
But
But
doesn't.
if but since you reject that, I want to know, is there a basis for the rationality and intelligibility of the idea that there are agents such as human beings?
In my discussions with you, Darth, which I have learned a lot, don't you agree that God, if he exists, and I know you claim he does, and I claim he doesn't, but doesn't God give people free will?
I shy away from using the term free will because it means so many things to different people. I just simply say that God has endowed some of his creatures to be like himself in that we have the capacity to make some choices.
And in that case, some of the do you think that some of those choices God's creatures makes are bad and poor choices? I do. What do you think?
Oh, of course. Look at all the people that
Absolutely.
voted for Joe Biden.
Exactly right, right. You know what? I think this is a good time now, if you're okay with it, because you're 50% mod. Should we invite a couple people
Well,
up?
I won't. Well, I appreciate you doing that. I will try to avoid, if all possible, not employing mod powers. Okay,
Well,
as long as people are not being abusive or just nonstop
well,
evasive.
Darth,
Okay.
you've been in enough of my rooms, and you know that my only desire is to give people reasonable time with social discourse without personal attacks. Are you and again, you and I planned this on the spur of the moment, and we did not spend days or whatever
No, but
agreeing.
I want to show. I'm going to
Yes,
show deference to you because you started the room. This is
yes.
under your auspices. So if you feel that I'm being impatient or interjecting too soon, I'll take under very serious consideration your objection.
And I appreciate that. And let me say, in addition to that, Darth, I'm gonna moderate this room like I've moderated all of my rooms. So if you're okay with that, I will invite
Mhm.
people up that have raised their hands. If you're okay with it.
I'm fine with that. I just that if I ask a truncated question and somebody's giving me a rambling monologue that bears no resemblance to the question, I'm going to interject and say, "You're not addressing the question."
The only thing I asked, as I've always asked, is people don't talk over each other, and we have social
All right.
discourse without personal attacks. That's
Right.
that.
I will give any respondent 60 seconds, and at the end of 60 seconds, if they are completely evading the question, I will interject and saying, "You're not addressing the question."
And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, claiming that someone else is evading the question, that's not personal attack. That is a legitimate claim. Whether or not it's accurate remains to be seen. So I've got three people raising their hands. I'm going to invite them all up. Here we go. And let's see what we have. Okay. We've got James, first one on the show. And in fact, James, you were here earlier in Ask the Atheist when that half of the exchange took place. You're up, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Hey, Darth. Yeah, I missed the first part of your guys' conversation. I'm just wondering, what was my question I put in chat? Um, like, what is the issue with atheists complaining about something, and how is it meaningless? The fact that
Um,
the fact that an atheist
why
can,
do I,
yeah, go ahead. Why is it meaningless if an atheist complains about murder?
because in their worldview, there's nothing that is fundamental, um, that's identifiable and defensible that dictates why anything happens, including their complaining.
That's irrelevant because they're complaining
No,
about.
no, no. It is relevant. Let me tell you why. Okay, um, because when they complain about something, the event or events they're complaining about, including the event of their complaining, either there's a rhyme or a reason why that's happening, or there is not. So it's directly relevant to the question: why is the complaint on the part of the atheist about anything meaningful? Well, the answer is it isn't.
I would very vehemently deny that it's meaningless. It's very meaningful
Mhm.
if someone was to break into my home and murder my daughter.
Okay, I think you're missing the point here.
No,
It doesn't matter whether the event is something egregious from your point of view, like a close family member being harmed, or you just simply stubbing your toe on a slightly raised edge of concrete on the sidewalk. Okay, the issue is, why are you complaining about events when there is nothing that dictates why any events happens? Is there one concrete thing? that dictates why all events happen?
Regardless of whether there's a concrete thing that dictates the event to happen, the event happened. And like say,
Okay.
if I stub my
Can you
toe,
address the
I am.
question, please?
If I stub my toe, I am answering it. You can accept it or deny it. I don't really care.
No,
The
you
point.
just swept it under the rug.
No, I did not. I'm telling.
You said
James,
regardless.
How about it? Yeah, go on mute. Let me. I think James is espousing what I said. I think, and I want to paraphrase what James said, repeat what I said, and then Darth can respond. What I said was, and I think James is agreeing with, and we pointed to the issue of murder, that if somebody murders a member of my family, it does not matter either their belief or disbelief in God or my belief or disbelief in God. The fact is, James and I think that the belief or disbelief in God is totally irrelevant to the situation. The fact is, and I want Darth's opinion on this, assuming James is agreeing with me, that somebody murdered a member of our family. Thank you for the thumbs up. And their belief or disbelief in God is totally irrelevant to the situation. Okay, James agrees with me, and now Darth, take whatever you want to, give your
Um,
point of view. Thank
yeah,
you.
I don't think you keep on bringing these extreme emotional examples of loved ones being harmed. That's not the issue. The issue is your complaint about anything at all. Is there something that dictates why any or all events happens? Is there, James?
Yeah, I'm going to answer for James. And yes, Darth, we understand, I think James and I understand that your issue is complaining about anything. And people that have heard me before have said, and I will say again, that when people use terms such as everything or nothing, or never or always, that is the easiest argument to defeat. I use this case in point. You did not specify murder, but James and I are bringing it back to specifically to murder because you said that anything having to do with
Okay.
complaining. So we're using one specific. But Darth, take a couple of minutes and respond. Thank you.
Is there something that fundamentally in the scope of the entirety of the world that dictates why such a murder or event happened?
I'm going to let James go to that. And then afterwards, we've got Silvano, Lasha, Benjamin, Ron on the stage. But I want James to answer that if he feels comfortable, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, James.
In relation to a murder happening, I would not say there's one thing that causes a murder to happen. There are many things that may result in a murder to happen.
So what you're saying is that there's just a chaos of events that are intersecting to bring about a unique event.
No, did I mention chaos at all?
Well, chaos is the idea that there is not one fundamental thing that concretely dictates all events.
I
Do
disagree.
you believe that?
I
Do you
disagree.
believe?
I disagree. There could be many ingredients in something that is not chaotic.
Okay, so here's the situation. If we don't have one concrete thing that institutes and creates how the world is, you then believe that there are two or more fundamental discrete states that do. Is that your position?
No, I'm focusing on the result of murder. You wanted me
No,
to answer. No,
no.
no.
I'm
Please,
talking about.
please.
You
Let's
said that,
let's stay on track with
no.
murder. Can we
You're
still?
not focusing.
No, no.
You're
And
not
and I
focusing.
think and with all due respect, I think that's a good time to move on because
Yeah.
Darth and James are both right. James and I are concentrating on one specific issue, and Darth is talking about a universal issue. So, Darth, if it's
Yeah.
okay, I wanted to move on till Silvano, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
All right, there we go. So, James, yeah, thank you. Stay on mute. Again, before we go to Silvano, I opened this room a half hour, 45 minutes ago because I back channeled Darth based on our 11 and a half minute discussion earlier today in Ask Uncle Steve. I played half of it. Let's go till Silvano. Good morning. And, shit, good afternoon. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Silvano, whatever you want to talk about.
Thank you. Hi, Steve. Hi, Darth. I've actually been trying to ask Darth a few questions for the last few days, but I keep missing them. So I'm glad to be here. Um, one of the first questions I would like to know, Darth, is, are you a Calvinist?
No,
What then? What I guess kind of Christian are you?
I am a fundamentalist Bible believing Christian. I strongly emphasize the sovereignty and providence of God to the point where some people mistake me for a Calvinist. The difference between a Calvinist and myself is that in Calvinism, God unilaterally determines what individuals uh, their eternal destiny. I don't believe biblically that it's unilateral. It's unilateral in the sense that God decides in and of Himself, logically prior to creation. Scripture says that Jesus was slain before the foundation of the earth, but that in that unilateral decision, God incorporates the response of repentant human beings who repent um, due to the convicting power of the Holy Spirit. So that would be the difference between myself and Calvinists. Where we would strongly agree is the heavy emphasis and focus on God's sovereignty and overall providence in order to have a coherent worldview.
Um, on your, I guess, on your journey in Christianity, um, kind of how did it start? How did it grow? I'm basically in between a theist and an atheist right now. I'm trying to challenge some of my beliefs, so I'd like to hear how people came to theirs.
Well, I'll give you the short story. In my late teens, I had the opportunity from time to time to see certain prominent evangelists on TV, not the usual whack jobs that you see today. So I started to read the Bible for myself, and I came to realize that God is. Well, I already did believe in God, and that Jesus Christ was who He said He was, died on the cross, and rose again from the dead, and He's coming again to judge the living and the dead, and that God commanded me and everyone else to repent and to believe on Jesus Christ, without which each of us will face eternal separation. So I decided to repent and believe on Jesus Christ to avoid that unpleasant situation.
If I can inquire really briefly, pardon me, Darth, did all of that information come from the television or did it come from
No,
anywhere
it
else?
came from the Bible, from the
Thank you.
Bible.
The Bible. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, Silvano.
I actually have a question for you, Steve. Have you always been an atheist, or were you a theist once and just kind of fell off?
I was raised in a Jewish family. My mom and dad, although my dad is still with me, my mom passed away last year, not due to COVID. 100% Jewish. All four of my
Oy
grandparents,
vey.
all four of my grandparents were Jewish. They are all passed on. I was a regular practicing, although reformed, of the Jewish religion for the first 35 years of my life. I then was in the middle of a very bad marriage. Halfway through my marriage, I became an agnostic, primarily because not only was I questioning the relationship of me and my ex wife, but also my relationship with God. I then got divorced and became a full on atheist for the past 20 years. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for your answers and your time. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. And then before we go to Lasha, Benjamin, and Roger, Darth, with your permission, I think it would be appropriate to once again play the first 5 minutes of our engagement earlier this morning, and then we can go to more questions, unless you want to do something else.
Well, haven't we already listened to it already?
All right, well, we can listen then to the second 5 minutes if you would
If
like.
that's what you prefer.
Or we can just,
Or we can move on to the
no, no,
next
no,
people on
let's,
stage.
tell you what, your choice,
I
whatever
would
you
I
want,
would
you
I would
choose.
prefer to move on since we already listened to the introduction.
All right, sounds good. So let's move on then. We have Lasha Lane on stage. And Lasha, a pleasure to see you again. And the stage is yours.
Hey y'all, I just want to make sure that before we get started, we're not, that everyone's on their best behavior. We're not going to be kicking people out of the room for asking questions that are slightly uncomfortable.
Well, I won't kick anybody out of the room for asking an uncomfortable question.
Okay. Darth,
Lasha, by the way, you're up, but it sounds like you're at a carnival or something.
no,
A
I'm at
circus.
Universal Studios.
Yeah, it sounds like you're at Universal
Yeah.
Studios. Yes.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure Darth and I are on the same page as well.
Well, tell you what. Why don't let's give it a try.
Okay. We've been having conversations on this app about religion and things for a long time, and there are a lot of people that would like to talk to Darth and have like an actual real helpful conversation, maybe get to a place of understanding.
You mean like Uncle Steve?
Yes, kind of like Uncle Steve.
Wow, Uncle Steve should
Kinda.
have. Kinda. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, kind of like Uncle Steve. But yeah, come back here. But the thing is, whenever you ask a question and you don't get the answer that you want, it's combative. Instead of that, why is it that you don't feel that adults know themselves enough to answer this question without you jumping on them, that they don't know themselves well enough?
Well, Lasha, maybe you should just ask Darth the question. Maybe you should just ask Darth the question.
I did. That's the question.
Well,
Okay.
Because you asked me.
All right, hold on. Lasha, go on mute. Lasha, and Darth, before you answer, Lasha, the only reason I insisted you go on mute is because you've got that Universal Studios in the back.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go on mute. Firstly, Darth, did you understand the question? And if you
Yes.
did, then go ahead and answer it.
Yeah, I take issue with your characterization of my interactions with people. I find that a good chunk of unbelievers that I talk to, that when I ask them certain narrowly framed questions, that they decide that rather than to transparently answer it, they give me an evasive response where they're gaslighting me. They're pretending they're answering the question when they're not. Somebody doesn't have to give me an answer that I agree with. But what they do need to do is give an answer that is germane to the question. And many unbelievers play the dodge game.
And Lasha, before you respond, this is a very appropriate time. This is a very appropriate time for me to play the second half of the interview, because Darth and I spoke for 11 and a half minutes today, and I not only tapped out, but I declared strike 6. In other words, Darth asked me more than 6 times, and he claimed that I was not answering the question. So, Lasha, go on mute. Lasha, go on mute.
I'm trying. Give me a second.
Oh no,
I'm
I'll do.
literally
I will take care of you. And so, Darth, with your permission, I thought that was a perfect segue.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, yes. We'll play the second half of the 11 and a half minutes today of Darth. Here we go, and then we'll come back for each other. But let me see if I can get what Darth is saying, because I'm already at strike 4, and I think I'm going towards strike 5. I think if we're talking about murder, then the person who commits the murder has the ability, or had the ability before the murder, to say either I want to do this or I don't want to do this. And if they make the wrong choice, then I have the ability to not only
You're not. You're
I,
not. That's not the
that,
issue.
I tap out then because I don't understand.
Yeah,
Maybe you
I'm saying in the
yeah.
broad scheme of things, in the totality of all that exists, is there something that singularly dictates why anything at all happens? As opposed to, and remember, you're
Oh, is there any
complaining,
one thing? No, no, no. There's not. There is
then
not.
then then your complaining is nothing more than a molecular burp.
If you say so.
No, no. The point is, in order to complain, right? If complaining about things makes sense if you're in a God world where God creates a world. Um,
It also makes sense if I contribute hundreds of millions of dollars to our politicians, and then when I complain, they stand up
well,
and
what I'm saying to you is this: is
yes.
that you're complaining about events makes no sense given your worldview, because there's nothing that dictates, that is identifiable, why anything happens. Now, if the atheist can tell me that there is something that fundamentally dictates why anything happens, I'd love to hear it. But so far, I have yet to hear one atheist who can tell me fundamentally why anything at all happens.
My
So why
complaining,
complain?
I'm going to tell you, my complaining makes sense because if I can influence other people to agree with my
You're
point
not
of
understanding the issue.
strike
Again,
six.
what you're saying is influencing people. Those events, uh, in some way, make sense, but there's nothing dictating the event of making sense with people. Is there something that is concrete, that is fundamental to everything that exists, that dictates why anything happens? Because if there is nothing that is identifiable, then you're complaining about events, is it doesn't mean anything.
I respect your opinion. Is there anything else that you
No,
wanted
I
to
want to
ask
know
me?
is your complaint about events substantive given your atheism? If it is substantive, please tell me then
I think my
what it is
atheism is
fundamentally that dictates anything.
I think my atheism is irrelevant to what I complain about.
No, it is relevant because you see, the atheism is the worldview out of which you're reasoning. It's either the God world or the not God world. So
How is
you are reasoning out of a not God world.
how is complaining about first degree murder relevant to whether or not I believe in God?
Okay. When you speak of any events, whether it's the sun rising or somebody murdering somebody or
Yes, sir.
giving a dog a bone, okay,
Yes, sir.
whatever the event is, that event will either occur within one of two worlds. Either a world where God is and events happen because they're within his plan of creation, or not. And if you're invoking events that occur in a not God realm, then what is it that fundamentally dictates why anything happens? Well, the answer is you have no answer. So complaining is meaningless from an atheist perspective.
And
To you.
yeah, whoa, hold on, whoa, let me mute that up. There we go. Okay, so that is pretty much like 10 minutes of what happened this morning, and I wanted to go to Darth if he wanted to comment on that briefly, and then we'll go to Benjamin. But Darth, go ahead, sir.
Am I done now, Steve? Is that what it is?
No, no, no. You're not. No, you're not done. And by the way, Lasha, I know that you're probably seeing yourself in the upper left-hand corner, which is we talked about that earlier. We've got Benjamin, Roger, Corey, and then back to you. But I first want to hear what Darth said. But no, you're not done at all. Go ahead, Darth. If Darth wants. If not, we can. Yep,
Yeah, I'd
yes,
like.
yes,
I
please
don't think
do.
she's completed her line of
Darth.
questioning and
Okay.
objection.
Okay. Fair enough. It appears, Darth, you want to hear Lasha speak for a few minutes. Is that right? Yes.
Well, what I want to hear her do is allow her to finish whatever questioning or disagreement she has with me.
Lasha, you got it. Lasha, you're on.
So I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible since it's really loud here. But I really would like to know, like, Just because someone is not a believer doesn't mean that they're answering the question wrong. You keep saying that there needs to be a fundamental reason. Why does there need to be a fundamental reason for anything? That satisfies you, not anybody else. So why does there need to be a reason for grown-ass adults living their lives the way that they want to live?
All right.
If there's not
Go ahead, Darth. Go ahead.
if there's not a fundamental reason dictating the broad scope of events, then talking about adults making choices is meaningless, because there's nothing that dictates the nature of adulthood. There would be nothing that dictates the actuality of agency. That's why, Lasha.
Lasha, did you
You
want
can
to
unmute your
respond?
mic.
I didn't hear what he said. Say it again.
And you're
Lasha,
obviously in a allowed. She's in a loud space. But go
okay,
ahead, Darth.
Lasha, I said, if there's nothing that is identified that is in control, that dictates what is, can be, and cannot be, then talking about adults being agents or making decisions for themselves is itself meaningless, because there's nothing that imposes or sustains human agency, or that there are discrete states of affairs that would be, quote, human, right? Because human would just simply be a spontaneous accident among other accidents in the universe. So either you have a view that there is one thing that sets into motion the world and is in control over it, or you don't believe that. So which do you believe, Lasha?
I don't believe that there's anything in this world that is doing anything besides me and the people around me. The reason we do the things that we do is for different emotional responses: love, hate, anger, joy, all those reasons. There is no God. There's no reason for me to subscribe to it, because there is absolutely nothing that verifies that it exists.
Well,
Plain and simple.
that's a claim that the world around you is not indicative of God as the absolute. So, do you know if there is that there is something that is absolute or ultimate that is not God? Okay, do you know that?
Do you know that there is?
Yes, I do. Now,
Have
can
you
you answer
seen
my
it?
question? Can you answer my question?
No. And you know what? Here's the thing. Me being an atheist, let me finish. We said no. We said no over talking each other, correct?
You see, I'm going to
Did we say
overtalk
no
you
over
right
talking?
now. I'm going to
Hold.
overtalk you as a point of
Okay. Wait.
moderation, because you're doing. Let me just finish.
Hold
You're
on.
doing precisely. You're doing exactly what I said people do. You are completely dodging my question. You're not answering the question.
Let me announce that I am the one that muted Lasha because of the technical issues. What I want to do is I want to give Darth a moment to respond. We'll give Lasha one last response, only because she's in a very loud area. So, Darth, if you want to talk now, you can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give
So,
Lasha one
yeah.
last chance, just because she's in a dark area. Go ahead, Darth.
Okay, well, you made a broad, sweeping global claim that nothing indicates that God is. Now, is that a proposition that you can actually defend, Lasha?
All right, Lasha, here's your last response, and you go ahead.
Absolutely. If I pull out a gun right now and I threaten to put it to my kid's head, who's going to stop me besides my
Yeah,
kid?
you're not addressing the question. Thank you
I
for
am.
wasting our
I'm
time.
literally wasting your time.
Thank you for wasting our time.
I,
Okay.
I was going to say, and it looks like she left. Darth, did you? Oh,
No, I moved her back to the audience because I asked her a direct question
ah,
several times, and
yeah.
she refused to answer the question. So she was doing exactly what I said to her when she objected to the way I deal with people. She did exactly what I said people do. She completely is dodging the question. I asked a legitimate, clear question, and she essentially refused to answer the question, but wanted to gaslight and make a pretense that she was addressing the question when she wasn't at all, which is, I consider that dishonest. So there's no point in talking with her any further.
All
She
right. And
refuses to answer the question.
all right. And before we go to Benjamin, let me say that yes, Darth moved her to the audience. I am not going to bring her back up right now, but it's not because of the content. It's because she is in a
Yeah,
very
right.
loud space.
Yeah,
Again,
I agree. I
yeah,
agree.
there we go. So now we're going to go to Benjamin, and I'm just going to say, hey, Benjamin, welcome. Benjamin, did you want to contribute at this time or go back on mute? And Benjamin, if you're talking, we cannot hear you. Darth, can you hear him? I cannot.
No, no.
Okay,
Let's
Benjamin.
move
Should I
on. Let's
fix
move
that?
on to
I
the
was going to
next
say,
person.
Benjamin, let's give you one more chance. Okay, so Benjamin,
Can
we're
you
gonna
hear
go
me?
ahead and mute you. We'll come back. Let's now
No,
go.
he was talking.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Benjamin. Go ahead. See,
Can you
Darth, my
hear me?
first instinct, Benjamin. Yep.
Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yes, go ahead, Benjamin. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry.
There you go. There you
Well, the app has really gotten bad about handling certain audio situations. Sorry. I did want to contribute. Thanks. I just wanted to say hi to both Steve and Darth. Always a pleasure.
Ahoy, matey.
Ahoy. So I had a question for somebody recently, which I thought was really effective and interesting. And Steve, if I could start with you, I know you come from a background identifying with the Torah, and the Torah has a passage in it which says that you should stone people who are gay, and I didn't want to ask you what we should do about the passage. I just wanted to ask, like, emotionally, how do you feel when the Torah says that we should throw stones at people until they die simply because of who they choose to love? How does that make you feel?
well, firstly, how does it make me feel? It makes me angry. But if you're asking what do I think about it, that's easy. I thought you were going to ask me a hard question. The answer to the question is that I do not think for any literature writings that we should agree with something that is arguably set in stone for over 2,000 years. I think we need to take into consideration, as I've said many times before, that literary versions of both the Bible and the Torah should not be set in stone. I absolutely think that they are based on fact, but should not be taken literally, either the Torah or the Bible. That's my answer to your question. I'm sure Darth views it differently.
Well, if I could, really same
Benjamin,
question
do
for
you
Darth.
take, yeah, Benjamin, do you take the command of capital punishment for various sexual activities outside of marriage as simply a global injunction upon everyone on the planet? Or is the capital punishment statutes a command to those who are in the covenant relationship with God through Moses?
Yeah, from my perspective, does it matter to my feelings
No,
on
it
this
does matter
particular
because
question?
no, it does matter because many unbelievers, when they invoke certain commands or actions that they find disgusting that God has given, that they don't accurately represent the context with which it's given. So, for example, you will not find the command to stone adulterers or stone homosexuals um, in Christian churches because the churches are not a national entity. The Mosaic Law is a unit of 600 plus laws that was a covenant between God and the nation of Israel, which comprised various ceremonial, dietary, and civil statutes that they were to keep in order for God to bless them, in order to be a light to the nations. Now, are you under the view that there are Christians advocating that because there was the capital punishment in the Mosaic covenant between God and the nation of Israel, that we are mandated to call for capital punishment of homosexuals or adulterers?
I don't think anybody's under any obligations, but I still have the question: how does that verse make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel bad at all. God has certain rules that he knows best for his covenant people, the nation of Israel, and that he does not want them to violate these rules because it does not glorify him, nor is it what is in their best interest. God knows that when you take sexual contact outside the bonds of marriage between one man and one woman, you have all sorts of terrible things that happen. Now, do you think that the killing of millions upon millions of unborn babies is a terrible thing?
I think taking the life of anything that's innocent is problematic.
Do you think that that is a terrible thing? The killing of millions upon millions of unborn babies in the late 20th and into the 21st century. Do you think that that's a terrible thing?
And I was going to say, I thought Darth was referring to abortion, but go ahead, Benjamin. You can
I said
answer it.
unborn babies.
I know exactly what you said, and that's why I said, Benjamin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think I've been consistent about this, right? I think taking the life of anything that's innocent is objectionable.
So then you would think it's terrible then. Is that correct?
Objectionable.
Is it terrible?
Objectionable. I don't know what terrible means.
You know, if somebody
Does it fill me
cuts
with
in front of me
terror?
in the movie line, if somebody cuts in front of me in the movie line, I might find that objectionable, but I wouldn't classify it as terrible.
Yes, and
Do you consider what happened at Auschwitz and Treblinka terrible, Benjamin?
let me say this. I want to interrupt before Benjamin comments, and then after Benjamin comments, we'll move on. I not only think it's not terrible, I not only think it's not objectionable, I absolutely approve and support of abortion within the first trimester. But Benjamin, go ahead, sir.
I'm just going to stick to my initial answer. I think the taking of any innocent life is objectionable.
What was the
It
question
is,
that I asked you?
and could be more than that. Well, you
What was
said
the
something
last
about
question that
Auschwitz.
I asked you?
You said something about Auschwitz, but the answer would be
Yeah.
the same to that.
Okay. Do you think that what was done to those people was terrible? Or was it just objectionable?
Yeah, I think it does invoke terror. Yes.
No, I didn't ask you if it evoked terror. I said,
It
was
was
it terrible?
terrible. It was inhumane. I could go
Well,
into specific.
let him answer for himself. You see, what you're now doing is you're segueing away from answering it by using a semi-related word. I said, is it terrible?
And Darth, he answered twice. He may not have answered on point, but I will give him a third time to answer the question. Absolutely he can have the third time, but I thought he already answered twice. But go ahead, Benjamin.
Yeah, I think there's many adjectives you could use. Steve used many adjectives.
Is
Those
it
are all
terrible?
applicable. Sure, it's terrible if you insist, but I don't know what terrible means. I have to go look it up in the dictionary.
You don't know what
It
terrible
means
means,
evokes
really?
terror.
We're gonna play this little
Then the
gaslighting
answer is
game?
yes.
Okay, so it's terrible. So is the killing of millions upon millions of unborn babies terrible?
I find it objectionable, but as Steve points
Okay.
out,
No,
there
I
are
said, is it terrible?
conflicting interests. I have lunch,
Is it terrible?
which requires taking life, which is innocent, and I find
So
it
you're not going to
objectionable.
answer the question. You're going to dance around it. Thank you
Ben,
for wasting my time as usual.
and don't remove him, please. Ben, just tap out. Ben, just say I tap out.
Yeah, it's Roger's turn. I'm
No,
fine.
this is what they do. They
well,
pretend they're
yes,
answering
that
the
is why I
question,
suggested
and
it.
they
Yes,
dodge.
exactly. Benjamin, thank Benjamin. Please stay on stage. Mute up. We'll now go to Roger, and I'll just say, "Hey, Roger.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Darth, how are you?
I'm peachy keen.
There you go. What's up, Roger?
I just had a debate with a Princeton professor about whether God exists. Actually, when was it? Thursday.
I know that both Darth and I would love to accept a check with a lot of zeros to debate a Princeton professor. What do you think, Darth? Yes? Maybe I shouldn't have
I
spoken
I
with
don't
you.
mind
I
talking with
would love a
anybody.
check. I would love a check.
And so, what was the outcome?
We ended up winning. It was the
No, I
vote
mean,
was
what
67 to 55 in our favor, I think, roughly that.
So it was a semi-formal debate.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was. They did a whole vote and blah blah blah.
And in fact,
Oh, okay.
hold on. I have to ask, how was the vote conducted, and were there hanging chads?
Oh yeah, it was.
Hanging
It was
chads.
a hand count. It set up.
Oh,
They just
so
every
raise
so
your. In other words, raise your hand. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
but it was there were a ton of people, so it took a while, but
Okay,
it was fun.
this
It was fun.
somebody was this on Princeton campus or some other campus?
He's retired. So he's in my where I study. I won't say why because reasons.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but he was on my campus, and so he was just here. He used to be a professor at my school, so he came, and that was nice. We tried to get
Why is he no longer a professor at your school?
oh, he's old. He's old.
Okay, so it was age discrimination.
Yeah, he's probably in his 80s or something.
Okay.
70s or 80s, I don't know. So it was good. It was good. But
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
All right,
Roger.
let's move
Go
on to
ahead.
core.
yeah,
Sure. Yeah, let's
Oh.
well, Roger, did you have anything you wanted to ask Darth or myself,
Oh
or should
well,
we move on to
if
Corey?
Corey's been waiting for longer than I did, then
Well, tell
Corey
you
can
what,
go ahead.
Corey has been waiting. Go
Yeah,
ahead
sure.
and mute
Then
up.
you
Yeah,
can go to
go.
him. I'll stick around. I'll just mute myself.
We will go ahead and mute up. Thank you. Hello, Corey.
Hello,
Yeah, what's up?
Darth.
That's what's on my birth certificate.
You are but a speck in this world.
Uh-oh. Let's keep it respectful. I'm watching. Go ahead.
You are but a bug.
That's warning number 1. Go ahead.
You are a bug.
You know what, Darth?
This
I
is a
think
meme.
Darth, I am willing to move him to the audience right now.
I got rid of him for wasting my time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't put up with that crap. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'm not offended. It's just it's the usual idiots. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yes, go ahead, Jacob.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Yeah. I think a couple of minutes ago there was this. Maybe it was the clip that was played, talking about how um, atheists shouldn't complain, or atheists don't have any ground for complaining about bad things. I don't know. Maybe you could just summarize it again,
I'd
because
be
I wasn't
more than happy to, and
Yeah.
Darth can correct me if I paraphrase incorrectly. Darth was saying
Okay.
that because I, or atheists, we don't believe in God, we have no right to complain. And then essentially it was said about anything. And so then I brought up one specific personal issue about murdering a family member of mine, and I claimed that if someone murders a family member of mine, that it doesn't matter whether or not they believe in God. Darth, is that essentially correct?
Well, I didn't say they have no right to complain, as I recall, unless I'm mistaken. I'm just saying is their complaints are meaningless in a world that is governed by simply chance, that there's nothing concrete that individually dictates why all events happen.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. No, Jacob, just a second. We'll get back to you. So, Darth, if I understand you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I have a son and a daughter. My daughter is going to be 30. My son's going to be 33. If some stranger murders one of them, I do have a right to complain, even though I don't believe in God. Am I correct or am I wrong?
So you're complaining that there was a causal sequence of a cause and effect that resulted in the end of your child's life?
No, I'm complaining that the piece of shit that killed my child should die in a
Yeah,
very painful manner. Yeah,
so
yeah.
then you're concluding that there's a causal sequence that brought about the end of your child's life. Well, is there something that dictates the causal principle?
I'm simply saying that not only am I angry about it, but I want them to die a painful death. That's
Is
all.
there is there such a thing as the causal principle?
I have no idea because I'm personal.
Okay,
I don't know.
did the murderer cause the murder?
Yes,
So then you do believe in the causal principle then.
if that's what it is, yes, I do.
Okay, is there something that makes the causal principle between two states of affairs or events real?
I have no idea.
Well, then you don't have a basis to complain about being angry to the murderer, because then your anger is just simply a spontaneous occurrence that doesn't stand in any causal relations between the passing of your child or the actions of the murderer, because there's nothing that imposes a cause and effect.
And Jacob, there you go. Darth and I just laid the foundation for you. Now it's up to you to take the
And
show. Go ahead, Darth. Go ahead.
is the problem when I ask the question, you atheists like to emotionalize the issue. It makes no difference whether you're talking about the murder of a close loved one or you get some cold French fries at McDonald's or Burger King. The issue is we're talking about events and complaining about it. Well, if events just happen for no rhyme or reason in the totality of all things, then complaining about such events is just simply another random event. Now, if all events are just simply spontaneous occurrences in a world without God, then complaints itself just becomes meaningless. It's just stuff happens. Now, if you feel that your complaining about certain events is intelligible and meaningful, then I want to know, is there one thing that stands in control of all events? Well, the answer is no, you don't have anything. So your complaining therefore becomes meaningless as a meaningless event amongst a myriad of unconnected and unrelated events. That's the consequences when you deny the lordship of Jesus Christ. You fall headfirst into a quagmire of meaninglessness.
And before we go to Jacob, my simple response is that attempting to compare my daughter's death by murder to ordering French fries is completely and utterly ridiculous. But Jacob,
No, what I
well,
said was
I heard what you said.
receiving
I heard what you
cold French
said.
fries. Okay, do people ever complain about receiving
Darth,
the
you
event of cold
compared
French
my
fries?
daughter's murder to ordering French fries. Come on.
Yeah, they're both events, right?
Well, this is why I wanted to go to Jacob.
Okay,
Is
I
it
would just
legitimate to complain about getting cold French fries,
This
Steve?
is why I wanted to go to Jacob, Darth.
Okay,
okay.
well,
What I would just like I wouldn't like to like fight with anybody on here or debate too much, but all I would just comment on is just to
Well, then
differentiate.
you came to the wrong room, baby.
No
No,
problem.
no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No problem. I would just want to just make a few comments to just differentiate between meaninglessness and ultimate meaninglessness. Um, if you complain, you might get better systems that might prevent murders in the future. You might say it's
you're not
ultimately
focusing
meaning.
on the issue, sir. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, you did say you give us 1 minute before you jump in
I
because
know
some
that,
other.
but you're off topic.
Well,
Okay, yeah,
Darth,
but you
hold,
still said you
hold
give
on,
us
hold
one
on,
minute
hold on,
because
Jacob. I'm going to stand up for you, Darth. I think even though he is off topic, we should give him 1 minute. Don't you
That's
agree?
fine.
All right,
That's fine.
okay,
Jacob.
okay.
Jacob, you have 1 minute.
Okay, in the grand scheme of things, maybe everything is ultimately meaningless. Even if there was a God, he could decide not to give you an afterlife or change his mind or anything. So things could end up being ultimately meaningless. But if something is ultimately meaningless, does it really mean it's totally meaningless? If you wake up tomorrow and there is no God, would that then mean you shouldn't get out of bed? Even if it's ultimately meaningless, that doesn't mean. So therefore, if you do complain, you can get things done. And who cares
You're
if
not
it's on the grand
understanding.
scheme of things, it's ultimately meaningless.
You're not
So
understanding.
thank
When
you.
you say get things done presupposes that there's a grand causal principle. But you see, in your worldview, there's nothing that institutes and secures the realness of the causal principle. So you're not getting the issue. Okay,
And
you're
I
just not
and I
getting it,
did I
Jacob.
did mute him after his minute. Jacob, I'm going to put you back on mute. You got your minute. Darth, did you want to hear from Jacob again, or should we move on to?
No,
Yeah,
he was going off topic.
Hopkindo. No, that's fine. We'll now go to Hopkindo. Hello, Hopkindo.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes,
loud and clear.
loud and clear.
Awesome. Well, I guess it's more of a, I was actually going to talk about something else, but you guys' conversation kind of inspired me. In when you guys were talking about like specifically the right to complain, right? And
You
forgive
mean
me if I'm,
you mean when Darth compared ordering an order of French fries to the killing of my daughter? Yes, please continue.
yeah, it
No,
seems
it
that,
wasn't a comparison.
Yeah,
It was an
actually,
either or.
it was.
No, I'm
it
just
seems
pointing
that
out that
like,
these are different events. Some
Oh,
are more emotionally laden. Some events are more emotionally laden. Some are lesser. Okay.
well,
Now,
Darth.
I never
Oh,
discussed, let me
go
just
ahead.
make a point of qualification.
Okay, sure.
I never invoked the issue of the right to complain. I'm
Hopkindo, you'll
simply
get your time.
talking about, I'm just simply saying that the complaining itself is meaningless given their model of reality.
And with that, before we go to Hopkindo, Darth, I want to say thank you because I'm glad you confirmed or qualified that ordering a pair of French fries is different than somebody killing my daughter. But I'm glad you acknowledged that. And I know you said more. But I'm just glad that you acknowledged that. So let's go back to Hopkindo. Go ahead and unmute, sir.
yeah, so I guess I have like two distinct questions because it kind of like your conversation, it almost gives like, it hits me as like when Darth is asking you about this, kind of like an ultimate nihilism, right? Like ultimately, why does anything matter? Why does it matter that your daughter was murdered? Why does it matter that, why do you assign value to anything at all if there's no fundamental underpinning? And then to Darth, my question would be, like even in a God world, or even in a for you as a believer, if you like, what if you come to me and if I'm nihilistic in that world and I say, well, I don't care that this person is made in the image of God. I don't care that I'm going to hell. I'm okay with the consequences. I just decide to rebel against God. What's irrational about that, or what would be wrong about that if I'm willing to accept the consequences on the Christian worldview?
It is utterly irrational to defy God.
But
I'm
if you're willing to accept the consequences, like, how is it irrational if it's just me making a decision like, okay, I know I'm not going to win this fight, but this is just how I want, because I can't see myself like being in heaven worshiping God for all of eternity. Like, what would be irrational about someone taking that position, other than the fact that generally people would like to avoid the pain of hell, and generally
Well,
people,
whatever thoughts or predications don't originate and conform with the mind of God are simply a figment of your imagination. Now, if you disagree, you can tell me why they're not a figment of your imagination.
And
That's
just
why I
and
say
hold
it
on,
is
and just for a housekeeping issue, Ringo, you are two down after Hopkindo. We've got Juju and then you, Ringo. So we're still with Hopkindo and Darth. Go ahead, you two.
well, I'm sorry, Darth, that kind of distracted me. What was it? Could you go over the point you were just making again?
Yeah, I was distracted myself as well. Trying to remember.
You were saying something like that is a figment of my imagination if it doesn't
Yeah,
conform to the mind of God?
yeah. Your choosing to rebel against God is irrational because it's rooted in the figment of your imagination. Okay,
Well,
because all thoughts and conduct that are inconsistent with the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God are, by definition, within the Christian worldview, irrational. When
but I
Satan
would,
said of himself, I will be like the Most High, I will ascend to the throne of heaven, that was utterly irrational. It was a figment of his imagination. When Adam and Eve decided to sin and rebel against God, and when you and I decide to rebel against God, that too is a form of irrationality.
I,
So, so
I
you
don't
believe
see
that
how
Adam and Eve really? You really believe that?
Ringo,
Wait,
with all due
Ringo, just
respect,
wait.
it's
Go
my
ahead, Hop.
turn.
Yeah, this
Go
is
ahead,
this is
Hop.
why I wanted to give that. Ringo,
Yeah,
you'll
just
get your
Hop. Just
turn.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems, and with all due respect, Darth, I don't see how, if you could clarify, like, I think irrational I kind of get, but you said that it's not real. Like, I mean, I think that Satan, like according to your worldview, Satan's rebellion was very real, right? The rebellion and the
That's not
consequences
that's not
of
my point.
rebellion was real.
I didn't say his rebellion wasn't real. I said it was utterly irrational and a figment of his imagination. I didn't say that the rebellion wasn't real.
Okay, well, could you clarify the figment of his imagination? Are you talking about like the goal, like the
When he said,
possibility that he could win?
I will be like the Most High. Now, from a biblical perspective, was his thought there, was that rational or irrational?
I would say, according to the biblical worldview, it's not possible. So, yeah.
Okay. So
God,
when we decide to
need to be
exercise,
to
Ringo,
think.
please wait. Ringo, please wait. So when we as human beings decide to rebel against God, we're doing in essence the same type of thing. We are proclaiming in our own minds our ability to act and reason autonomously. Okay. In the Christian worldview, nobody is autonomous but God. So that when human beings think and act as though they're autonomous, that is within the Christian worldview utterly and completely irrational.
Well, could I respond to that?
Yeah, please do.
So, first of all, my first point is this. I'd like to make a point and then an analogy, but the point is, I think it's different fundamentally if a human rebels against God versus Satan, because the idea is, like, if a human could rebel and say, look, I know I'm not going to be God, like that's ludicrous. Like, I know I'm not going to be God. I'm just merely choosing sides, and I understand the consequences that I'm going to lose this fight, but I'm still going to do this. Like say for example, soldiers in a battle, and this is the analogy, soldiers in a battle that are like, well, I'm going to lose. Like there were soldiers that fought to the bitter end, right? Like despite but you wouldn't call those people irrational. You would just say they chose their
That's not what
side, wouldn't you?
that's not what we're discussing. When Adam and Eve decided to eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, were they first and foremost in their minds opting for autonomy?
And I think we should get a last comment from Hopkindo. We'll get Darth's response. Then we'll move on to Juju and Ringo, if that's okay with you, Darth.
Well, I just want Hop to answer the question.
Yes, that's why I said we
Yeah.
should get a last response from him. Get your response and move
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, were they acting in autonomy when they ate of the tree of the fruit, or the
Did
fruit
they
of the?
believe that they were acting in autonomy?
I don't know their thoughts at that point in time, so I don't know.
Well, they had to have known that they were acting autonomously, because either the mind of God is autonomous or we are. And so when they decided that they would disobey, they were disregarding the autonomous declaration of God. That's why Satan said to them, "You shall surely not die, but your eyes will be opened." So Adam and Eve decided to act unilaterally in opposition to the autonomous mind and autonomous declaration of God. So they were proclaiming within their own minds that they could act and reason autonomously. So in a biblical worldview, there is no autonomous reasoning. Okay? And so the person who believes that they can reason autonomously is deluded. It's a figment of their imagination.
Well, if it's not autonomous, then how does someone not then autonomously decide to repent or to choose rebellion against God? Is it predetermined in a sense of whether or not they're going to choose, or which side they're going to choose if it's not autonomous to their own being?
Well, there are some Christians theologically who hold to that view. I do not. I believe that God autonomously creates a world, knowing ahead of time that there would be rebellion, and decided that he, in his plan of creation and redemption, he would have a plan of salvation through Jesus Christ, and that those human beings who repented through the convicting power of the Holy Spirit would believe. So even our believing is not autonomy. We may cooperate with God, but that is not the same thing as autonomy. Agency is not the same thing as autonomy. If Adam and Eve had chosen from their agency not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then they would have held to the notion that God's mind and being is autonomous, and they were not, even though their agency decided to coincide with God. The point is that human beings, to this very day, continue to believe in the delusion, the figment of their imagination, that they can reason and walk, talk, and breathe autonomously. And that is a figment of their imagination. And anyone who disagrees with that can give me a rebuttal.
Yeah,
All right, and hold on, and with that, I think we should move on. We've got next in the queue Jujo, Ringo, and Silvano. So let's go to Juju. Hello.
Hey, so what I want to ask you, Darth, is I want to know if you can produce a contradiction in the world that has intelligibility but no God.
Why do I need to do that?
No, I mean I'm asking you if you're able to do that. Are you able to, Darth?
I might be. I don't know. It's not something that I've given much consideration to. It. All I know is that a world that is invoked to be God free is a world which is at its root unintelligible.
Well,
Darth, I thought you could leap tall buildings in a single bounce and travel faster than a speeding bullet. But go ahead, Juju.
Yeah. So in other
Hold on.
words, do you have an argument that
Hold
is
on a second.
necessarily the case that if God doesn't
Hold on a
exist?
second.
Okay, go ahead.
Hold on. I just wanted to play something for
God need to be pinned
Yeah,
down.
no, Ringo, you're up next. Trust me, Ringo, you'll get your
Okay,
five.
now what did you just say about jumping tall buildings?
Darth, what I said was I thought you could leap tall buildings in a single bounce and travel faster than a speeding bullet. That's
It's
what
funny. It's funny that you should say that, because Netflix has just announced a new show on their streaming service. I will play the quick commercial for that.
I would love.
The Adventures of DARTH Dawkins.
bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Up in the sky. It's a bird.
What a nonsense. What a nonsense.
DARTH DAWKINS. Yes, it's DARTH DAWKINS. Strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. DARTH DAWKINS. Who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, file-banded reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Now streaming on Netflix.
Now, I have to say, before we go back to Juju, that Darth, when I think about truth and what and the American way, what is it? Truth and what?
Truth, justice, and the American
Truth,
way.
justice, and the American way. I'm terribly sorry, but you are not the first person that I think of. But that being said, let's go back to Juju.
Okay, yeah. So my question for Darth is, Darth, do you have a non-question begging argument that shows that it's impossible for intelligibility to exist and God does not?
That's a category error in the form of a question.
Oh,
You'll
so
forgive me, I just took a bite of a sandwich. When we reason about what is central or fundamental to our worldview, it is unavoidable that we will presuppose that in order to reason and defend about it, because that is unlike discussing other issues like whether or not there is an apple in the refrigerator. It's because we are not omniscient. We are in an epistemic condition. So this question that you've asked is a typical sophist question that the atheists are handing around like candy to each other. So I will ask you a very simple question. Is reasoning about what is the ultimacy of reality, that which is absolute, that provides for all non-absolute states, is that different in terms of category versus reasoning about an apple in the refrigerator?
what do you mean? Is it different? It's a different thing. I don't really
Is
know.
it a different category of reasoning?
As a
So
contemplating.
for example, if I'm going to argue to you about whether there is a Higgs boson or a Higgs field, I'm going to reason in a different manner other than if I'm going to argue about an apple in the counter in the refrigerator. We don't reason and argue for things in precisely the same way for everything. Now, when it comes to the ultimacy of reality, if we concede that such a thing exists, reasoning about that is in a completely different category versus arguing about or reasoning about something as simple as an apple on the counter. So where begging the question would be fallacious when we're talking about the apple in the refrigerator or on the counter, it wouldn't necessarily be fallacious when we recognize when we attempt to reason for certain things, we have to presuppose it, without which we wouldn't be able to talk about it at all. So, for example, could you reason and give a defense of the actuality and the basic reliability of sense perception without first presupposing it?
I don't know, probably not.
No. So when you got this question, did you think of this question all by yourself, or did you get it from another source? And be careful with your answer. I expect you to be truthful.
I mean, I've definitely thought about this, and I just wanted like your opinion, like on the matter.
No, you're dodging the question. Did you come up with this question entirely by yourself, or did you pick it up from another source?
No, Ringo, firstly, Ringo, go on mute. That's number one. Ringo, you're next. Secondly, I would like to state for the record that whenever I ask Darth a question, I always think of it myself. I never get it from another source. But he's not asking me. He's asking you, Juju.
Yeah, no, I got it for myself when I heard Darth make this argument. It was my question against his statement. So yeah.
Please address the question.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something I thought of when I
I
heard you
don't.
saying this.
I don't
So
believe.
yes.
No question begging. No, you didn't. You heard it from other atheists. This is a sophist type of question that is being circulated by atheists on Clubhouse.
Hey Darth,
So you're telling me you didn't
hey
hear
Darth,
that?
he didn't get it from me, but sorry to interrupt.
Okay, yeah. So the point is this: if we're going to reason about the ultimacy of reality, whatever we conclude that that is, the starting point, the method, and the conclusion are all going to depend upon each other. Let me repeat that again to you, Juju. If we're going to reason and attempt to convince somebody else as to what the ultimacy of reality is, the starting point, the method, and the conclusion, meaning the ultimacy of reality, will all involve each other and depend upon each other. Now, do you agree with that last statement?
Sure. I didn't hear the last part, the very last bit of the words. I didn't hear it.
Do you agree with what I just said?
Can you just repeat the very last bit, please?
When we argue or reason or try to persuade somebody as to what the ultimacy of reality, the starting point, the method, and the conclusion, meaning the conclusion being the ultimacy of reality, all are involved and depend upon each other. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Okay. If you hold that there is something that is singularly ultimate that dictates why anything at all happens,
Uncle Steve, how many
then
minutes
whatever your
is
start,
given to each of these speakers?
Ringo,
yeah, you're not in here to dictate
Ringo's gonna
anything,
be up in
Ringo. You're
about
going
a
to wait your turn.
yeah, he'll be up in about a
All
minute
right,
or
we
2
don't need it. Okay,
minutes.
so
Yeah.
Juju, if you're going to argue with somebody about what is fundamental to the grand scope of things, you're going to have a starting point of some kind. Do you agree?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, that starting point typically will be your own self-consciousness, right?
Sure.
Then from your self-consciousness, you're going to deploy reasoning or discursive reasoning about your sense experience, the world around you, and then you come to a conclusion, i.e., the ultimacy of reality. Each of those things are going to involve each other either explicitly or implicitly, and that is unavoidable. Now, if somebody wants to categorize or classify that as begging the question, then so be it. Then when the guillotine cuts off their head, they have no one to blame but themselves. And what I mean by that is this: if one cannot reason about or to the ultimacy of reality in what I have just explained in part, if that is rejected, then there cannot be any instantiation of the ground of all being, and therefore whatever line of reasoning or predication somebody invokes, it will be without a fundamental basis whatsoever, and they screw themselves. So when people talk about saying, well, can you give a defense of God that is not question begging, this is sophistry. Okay.
Yes.
And
Now, do
Okay.
you have a rebuttal to anything I said?
yeah, and Juju, I'm going to give you a last response. So go ahead, Juju. You have a last response if you want it.
Okay, sure. And I would just end it with this. I guess like what I want to know is you're appealing to like a presupposition, but everyone has presuppositions, and I'm just wondering like why is it the case that you believe that your presupposition triumphs over every other presupposition?
And with that, Darth, I have to go out to my car and grab a pack of cigarettes. I recommend that if you want, you can answer that. Sorry about that. And then when you move on to Ringo, because I don't know if you've engaged with
That was
Ringo.
a joke.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hold on, Ringo. You're not up just yet. Just yet. Darth, while I'm away, I recommend you simply allow Ringo to speak for a couple of minutes uninterrupted
Of
and
course,
respond.
of course.
Because if you don't, and again, I love Ringo in a clubhouse way, like one of my nephews, you guys will be talking each other. the entire talking over each other the entire time. But
I'm well acquainted with Ringo.
there you go. Then Darth, I leave it to you. I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Okay, my turn now.
No,
Is it
Ringo,
now or
Juju, please wait, Ringo.
oh, all right, all right.
Juju, please forgive me. I took a bite of my sandwich. Do you have a rebuttal to my response to you?
No, I don't have a
Okay.
rebuttal to
Anything
that because
else?
I wasn't trying to refute that. I was only asking you, like, do you have an
Yeah.
argument for why your presupposition is necessarily most
Yeah.
logical? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The Christian worldview, I defend it as a package. I don't defend it piecemeal, bit by bit. I defend it as a whole package. The Christian worldview, in terms of its fundamental parameters, which is the triune God and his character set, are indispensable in order to invoke anything at all as meaningful and intelligible, and they're indispensable for human beings to be in possession of truth, reason, and intelligibility. And the denial thereof results in complete absurdity. All right, we're going to move on to Ringo. Go ahead, Ringo.
Oh, thank you. I have waited so long. Duh. Yes, I consider you to be my antagonist, but I don't hate you whatsoever because we always have intellectual conversation. What I want to say is mine is not going to take even 3 minutes. It's just that the God that you believe in is not knowable by you yourself. There's no way you can pinpoint that
Go back 2 sentences.
Do it again.
You said something is not knowable.
Yes, the God that you believe in is not knowable, neither by you. It's just an imagination. Okay, it is an imagination. And
Okay. Do you have a defense of that?
do I have a defense for it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course I do, because I am a rationally fit individual just like you, but I cannot claim to know that this being actually exists. There's no way you can prove it. There's no way. And
Okay, can you prove that? Can you prove that there's no way to prove it?
Yes, of course. I do not have the words to actually say, oh yes, I know this God and I know this God, unless through my own imagination or through my own dream.
Can you focus on my question, please?
Of course I do.
Can you prove that God is unprovable?
No, I do not have to prove anything.
Good. You've now contradicted yourself.
No. Just hold on.
Did you say that I couldn't prove God?
Just hold on, sir. Just hold on. Let's just take
you
it
hold
point.
on. You hold on.
Let's just take it point by point. Let's just take it point by point.
I'm going to move you back to the audience if you don't calm down. Now, Ringo, did you say that God, the God that I represent, is unprovable?
I'm listening.
Ringo.
I'm listening.
Did you say the God that I was invoking is unprovable?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can you prove that?
The proof is not with me, sir. It's just like if I ask you, for example.
Can you answer the question?
I am answering.
Instead of pretending. When I'm talking, shut up.
I thought you asked me a question, sir.
I know. Yeah, listen. I did ask you a question.
Yeah.
You always respond by giving me an answer to something I didn't ask. Very simple question. Can you prove that the God that I advocate cannot be proven?
It cannot be proven because the proof is on you. It's not with me. Because we simply say
you're not getting this.
Oh.
All I want to know is a yes or a no. Can you prove X? X is that the God of the Bible cannot be proven. Can you prove that?
It cannot be proven, and I understand your limitation.
Can you prove that?
Gosh, Am I the only
Yes
one
or
in the
no?
audience here with
Okay.
this?
Ringo, this is very simple. You need to focus on what I'm saying to
I
you.
am
Can you
focusing.
prove? Listen, when I'm talking, I don't want to hear your voice. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I expect you to respond to the specifics of the question, not granting you an opportunity to rabbit trail on something else. Can you prove that the Christian God cannot be proven?
It cannot be proven.
Can you prove that?
Why do I need to prove it when you
Because
cannot?
that's a
No,
claim that you are making.
you cannot prove something that doesn't exist. You just simply
Okay,
can't.
listen. Okay. Oh, okay. So you are saying is that the Christian God cannot be proven because the Christian God does not exist. Is that your position?
Of course, it is mine.
Good. Now, do you have a rationale and a metaphysic
Okay.
that can demonstrate the God of the Bible doesn't exist?
Okay, whether be it metaphysics or being whatever other innocent sounding name you want to assign it to, here is my position. For example, when you say 2 plus 2 is equal 4, no one can dispute that. Okay? And it can be
Of
proven.
course I can. Of course I can.
How?
That's an abstract object. These are abstract objects.
No, you can pick up 2 sticks plus 2 sticks, and they can make 4 in whatever language that
Okay.
you use.
Well, but
Okay?
here's the problem. Here's the problem. Are you saying that the future will, listen carefully?
I am.
Are you saying that the future will be like the past?
Of course, never.
Okay, listen. Are you saying that every time that you put one thing and a second thing together, they will always equal 2?
Okay,
Be careful about answering the question.
I
It's not
am.
a trick question.
I am. No,
If
you
I
cannot
take
trick me.
one
You cannot
thing,
trick me.
if I take one thing and I join it with another,
Uh-huh.
the result will always be 2.
Can you dispute that?
Are you saying
One rock
one
plus another
thing joined
one
with
rock,
another one thing will
one
always
rock,
result in 2 things?
one rock plus another one rock, will it not be equal to?
Will that always be true?
Of course.
Okay, so if we have 2 people that are dropped off at a desert island, a man and a woman, okay, we put one man on the desert island, we put a woman on the desert island, and we come back 10 months later.
Of course,
Is it guaranteed? Is it
there would be
guaranteed?
there
Hold
would
on
be
a
3.
second.
There would be
Don't
3.
listen. I don't want to have to. Oh, so 1 plus 1 in that instance can equal 3?
At that very beginning. Okay, can I just give you a simple example? Can I just give you a
Wait,
simple
okay.
example?
You need to focus. This is
I
your
am
biggest
focusing, sir.
problem in
You
every.
are
Okay, if
you
you
are
ever talk to me
insulting.
again, I'm moving you back to the. Okay, goodbye. You're gone. Okay, I warned you. Okay, you won't stop. Okay, you're not.
And I am
Okay.
back
Yeah.
from I am back,
Yeah.
Darth, with my pack of cigarettes.
He wants to say that certain mathematical ideations, mathematical objects and their relations will always be true in the future. Now, is he talking about in terms of abstract objects, or is he talking about that the exemplification of those abstractions in terms of the physical world? Because then he's saying that the future will be like the past. But what singularly and concretely imposes that the future will be like the past? Well, the answer is he's got nothing.
And before we invite Matt on the stage, well, he's on the stage. Before we invite Matt to talk to Darth or myself, I wanted to say, Darth, with your permission, this room is going to close in 21 minutes. I think 2 hours works. What do you think, sir?
That's up to you. Since you started the room, I
All
will defer
right.
to
Since
you.
no, fair enough. Since it's up to me, this room is closing in 20 20 minutes.
Unless we have significant numbers of people that want me to continue it by myself, on your departure, Steve.
The only, Darth, I have a concern about that, and that if you continue it on, it's no longer Uncle Steve versus Darth Dawkins. It's just Darth Dawkins versus everybody, and that's not fair. I opened this room with the thought that you needed a little bit of help.
But there's been no combativeness the entire time
Well, that's
between the
because
two of
Uncle
us.
Steve is helping Darth moderate the room. Tell you what, we'll take that discussion back up in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said,
All
want
right.
to
So let's go to who is
Matt.
next, Silvano
Matt.
or
Matt
Milith?
is next. Hi, Matt.
I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darth. Is someone else
I
next?
don't. I don't see anybody. Matt. I see Milith.
Yes, Milith. And if you,
Oh, Matt. Okay, Matt.
yes,
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
he's new on Clubhouse, or at least he has 5 followers, and he's following 5. But he says his name is Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
Hey.
So, I forget who it was. Juju, I think it was.
Well, tell you what, let's just forget about the names and let's just talk about what you heard.
Yeah, so Juju asked a question if Darth had a non-question begging way of arguing for the truth of the Christian God.
I gotta tell you, Matt, I have never in my entire life of knowing Darth, I've never heard him beg.
Oh, yeah. So I was just wondering. I thought that conversation got
Well,
cut off
hang
a little
on a
bit.
second. Hold on, Darth. Since you've been on Clubhouse, have you ever begged?
Yeah, I begged
Really? You've
moderators to
begged?
mod to mod.
I got. Tell you
Can I
what,
finish? Can
Matt,
I
go on
finish?
mute. I got to hear this, Darth. When did you last beg?
I've begged moderators to, impose moderation instead of letting it be a free for all.
Fair enough. And Darth, even though you have complimented me, you've thrown me props. You've never begged me to do anything, right?
Not that I recall.
My point exactly, Matt. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I just thought that conversation got cut off a little bit prematurely. I think there's a lot more avenues to go down
How did
with
it
that.
get cut off when I asked him for a rebuttal and he was silent?
Well, yeah, he wasn't the best advocate for his own question. I'll definitely give you
Okay,
that.
before we go on, I'd like to know the context from out of which you're speaking to me. Are you an atheist?
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
Darth.
hold on, stop. Before we even go there, I think what Matt is saying, and correct me if I'm right, Matt, you think you are a better advocate for the position than he was. Is that correct?
I'll do my best.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, are you an atheist, sir?
Yeah, I've talked to you a bunch of times, Darth.
Is this your main account or a sock account?
No, it's my main account. I changed my name. My name's Matt Shane. The only time I spoke to you, I think, or one of the two
Okay.
times I spoke with you. I think you're following me.
Am I? Let me look. Yes, I am. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So, from my understanding, your rebuttal to that was to say that you take the Christian worldview as a whole. You don't take it in piecemeal, and when you're talking about things like worldviews, there really is no non-question begging way to go about presenting that argument to someone. Did I get your rebuttal incorrect?
I don't consider it question begging because question begging would only apply to certain categories.
Okay, so the way I would ask it, I guess, is so I get okay, so first of all, your argument for God is something like tag, right?
My rationale for God is that God has. I'm not going to put this in a syllogistic form, but
Yeah.
God exists, and we know this by virtue that He has taken the initiative to construct this world in such a way that He reveals Himself through creation in an undeniable and irrefutable way, and through the course of human history.
Yeah, but in the premises there, you assume that God exists, right? So that's what I mean by question begging. The premises that you just laid out, right,
okay.
would
So
assume
are
the
you
existence of God, which is the conclusion.
are you against that?
Not in principle. No, I'm not against that. I'm just
Okay.
wondering if you would give the same charity to an
I
atheist.
don't consider it question begging.
Okay, well then, so then you would. I assume
Because
you would.
as Greg Bonson would say, this is the crackers in the pantry fallacy. We don't reason about everything in precisely the same way. When we're reasoning about the ultimacy of reality, that is quite a different thing than reasoning about whether there are crackers in the pantry or an apple in the refrigerator.
Yeah, for sure. So, you would extend the same generosity to an atheist, then, right?
Well, the question is there fundamental presupposition? Is it justifiable in any sense and in any way? And the answer is no, it's not.
Well, so what's the okay? So I understand the sufficiency part of your claim that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility or knowledge or whatever. I get the sufficiency part of that. Maybe I'll grant you that. But I would like to know the argument for the necessity part of it, right? Like the necessary condition part.
Oh, okay. So this is the question that the atheists have been recently circulating. I mean that you want a rationale that God is the necessary precondition of truth, reason.
Condition. So I get the sufficiency part
Yeah.
of the claim, right?
Duality or ontology. Do you agree with that?
In order for there to be intelligibility, there must exist certain actuality.
Intelligibility is derivative of ontology. Do you accept that?
Uh, uh, yeah, sure.
Okay. And so, in order for there to be ontology of any discrete entity, that entity must possess identity. Otherwise, you won't be able to invoke it. Do you accept that?
Sure.
Okay. In order for something to possess identity, it must possess identity in terms that it is absolute in and of itself, or its identity is derivative. Do you accept that?
Sure.
Okay. So, in order for there to be intelligibility, there must be ontology, there must be actuality, and that is grounded in the identity of either discrete affairs or discrete entities. Those entities must possess identity and at least some identity over time, which will be in virtue of that which is the absolute, without which there couldn't be identity for anything. Do you accept that?
No.
Okay, so how would anything possess identity if nothing is absolute?
So you could have like localized understanding of identity, right? You don't
I
need
don't
to
think you
have
understood the
absolute
question.
understanding. Sorry.
No, I didn't say absolute understanding. I'm talking
Okay.
about the absolute, that there is something that exists in and of itself, self-contained, unconditionally non-dependent and derivative, that provides for the actuality of whatever exists. That's what I'm
Okay.
referring to
I'll
when I
just
say
grant you
the
that.
absolute.
I'll just grant you that.
All right, and
Okay,
guys,
do you?
12 minutes now, 11 minutes, and then we're closing the room.
Okay, Matt, so do you believe that intelligibility requires the absolute?
Yes, but let's just say I don't know what that absolute is.
Okay, well, in order to invoke that there is an absolute, so consequently there can be intelligibility, the only way that you could invoke that the absolute is if and only if the absolute was an agent and had the necessary and sufficient attributes to secure that it gives self-disclosure to us and that we receive it in a way that we can know it.
No, you could have a transcendental argument, right? Like, so you could say something like knowledge can't be understood unless there is some absolute which gives identity to
No,
all things.
you're
Therefore, there
you're you're
must be
you're
an
begging.
absolute that gives
You're
identity to all
quite.
things,
No,
right?
the
But
point
that
is no,
in that
no,
argument, it says nothing about God.
no. If you're going to invoke that there's an absolute? Are you invoking? Do you accept that the absolute behind everything, including intelligibility, is God?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are you operating that there is the absolute?
That there is an absolute behind everything? Well, let's just say I
Yeah.
have a transcendental argument for that, yes.
Are you invoking the absolute?
No, I'm just saying there's a transcendental argument. I don't
No, no,
know if there's an absolute or not
sir.
personally.
Then there's no absolute for you to invoke. Then is there?
Well, but I can have a transcendental argument for it. So unless you have a rebuttal to the argument.
What is the argument that there is an absolute? How would you know that it is there?
Well, you've given the argument for the absolute. It's what I conceded to you
No,
earlier.
no,
It's like
no.
knowledge
You
or
see,
identity requires something that's absolute.
You're bastardizing my rationale. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about God being the absolute, that is not the same thing as a generic absolute. Okay. Now, since you reject that God is the absolute, that he has revealed himself in creation and through the person of Jesus Christ, okay, your only alternative is to invoke what the absolute is other than Jesus Christ. So what is it?
No, I don't have to tell you what it is. That's wrong. It's not my burden to tell you what it is. I can just
No, it
say
is your
there is
burden. Well,
something.
does it? Well, then on what basis do you invoke that it's there? What if I tell
On
you
the
right
basis of
now?
my
What if?
transcendental argument I just gave you.
No. You're telling me that this transcendental argument, okay, that the transcendental argument is that intelligibility requires the absolute. You're
Yes.
presupposing the actuality of intelligibility, but intelligibility only exists if and only if